Okay, so this is a short lecture about using social media analytics. I'm Dave Hart from Birmingham City University, where I run the MA in social media. So we're just going to go over a few things about analytics dashboards for Facebook and Twitter. So we're going to look behind the scenes, if you like, at who interacts with your social media content on those platforms, what kind of engagement you have, and what you might do with the data. So we'll look at the kind of terminology that's used and try and understand what that terminology means, because it's slightly different across different platforms. And we'll just have some thoughts maybe about what to do with this kind of data once you've looked at it and reflected upon your social media interactions as a consequence. So the two platforms we're going to look at are the analytics platform on Twitter and the insights platform on Facebook. So the two URLs for this, so on Twitter it's analytics.twitter.com. Everybody can have an analytics account. It doesn't matter if you're a personal if you're for your personal account, or if you're a brand, or if you're an organization, if you're an educational institution. Twitter supply an analytics account for everybody. It never used to be the case, but recently they've allowed everybody access to the analytics. It may be if you're accessing your analytics page for the first time, it may not show you historic data. It may only start collecting the data from the point you first log on to your analytics platform. Okay, there's some variation in that as well. On Facebook, what we're looking at here is insights analytics for pages. So not for personal accounts, not for groups, for pages. So Facebook offers quite rich insights for those of you who run a page. So a page is a place where people come, and it might be for your school, it might be for your business, it's a place you promote or you talk about aspects of what you do, and people can come and comment on that, they can share what you do, they can like what you do, they can leave you messages there. But a page is like a promotional platform, isn't it, for whatever your activity is. So for this, I'm going to look at the analytics for my own personal Twitter account, and I'm going to look at the Facebook Insights for one of the pages that I run for an activity I do where I live. Okay, so let's look first at each of the platforms and see what they offer. So let's go back first to Twitter. So let's just have a quick look at my account as it usually is. Get the URL right, that's not me. So Dave Hart, here we go. So if we look at the home page, the profile page, if you like, for Dave Hart, it tells us some things, doesn't it? It tells us how many tweets I've tweeted in my time. So at this point, it's 29,554. That's partly because I joined Twitter rather, in February 2008. I follow 1,700 people. I have 4,400 followers. Sometimes if I see a tweet that I like, I click favorite. So I have favorited 476 things, and I have created lists, which I don't really use that much, 13 times. So sometimes I have created lists for students or for conferences I've gone to. There's my biography. If I click on that, I would see all the photos and images I have ever posted. And that would be, if you look up here, it says twitter.com at the top rather, Dave Hart /Dave Hart /media, and that just shows tweets that contain some form of media, okay, which could be an image. Sometimes the media is a link to another tweet, which is what it is there, or it could be a short video or anything. Okay, there's a YouTube video embedded. Okay, that's how it appears, and that's a media. Okay, so there's lots of information there. So if we're going to look at the analytics on Twitter, we go to analytics.twitter.com. And the first thing you see is a kind of dashboard which gives you a 28-day summary of what you've done. It gives you all the analytics, and at the top, let's just go through this. So there's been 243 tweets. It seems to tell me that that's up 20.9% on the previous 28 days. I've had 104,000 tweet impressions, so we'll come back to what impression means. And that's up quite a lot, up on nearly 75%. Profile visits, people who have looked at my profile, 969 visits, that's up, doing quite well these 28 days. Mentions, people who have mentioned me in a tweet, either by replying or saying something and including me in one of the list of people. That's 34.6% up, so 331 mentions. And I've gained 34 followers in the past 28 days. So as you scroll down, it gives you highlights for each of the months. So on March 2015, it tells me that my top tweet, which earned the most impressions, was this one, which is a kind of reply where I put a little dot at the front of it to stop it, so enabling everybody to see it. That one could be quite good. Top mention, there you go, I've got 37 engagements out of that mention. We'll come back to what engagements are. Then my top follower is this person who he is followed by 458,000 people, and now he follows me for some reason. So you can imagine of your followers, some have very few followers, and some might have tens of thousands or even more followers. So it kind of is a nice indication that this person, Tay Diggs, is a potentially important person in my network because he has access to a much wider network of people. Maybe I should be thinking about targeting some tweet in his direction in the hope that he'll retweet it, and then that would get me in front of a much bigger audience. My top media tweet was this one, picture of a couple of newspapers, and that earned me 704 impressions. As we scroll down, we get the full highlights for February, January, and you'll notice on the right-hand side there's a summary of each of the months to give you a quick glance. And as you scroll down, get more and more and more. And in fact, the scroll doesn't end. It just keeps adding on and on until the point at which you first started recording data. Actually, no, this looks like it goes back to September 2014, which I think is when Twitter enabled the analytics for everybody. But that's a good, that's a pretty good 6 months worth of data there. So let's have a look what else is here. So on each of these, it says you can look at all tweet activity. You can view the tweet that was the top mention, and you can view those individual tweets. You can view followers dashboard, but you can also do that from up here. So on the top line here, it says analytics, home, tweets. So let's have a look at tweets. So this gives you a dashboard which lists all your individual tweets. And as you scroll down, it adds more and more and more. That would carry on forever. Well, until the September 2014 in my case. Okay. So we're not going to carry on doing that, but it gives you details of each individual tweet. And on the right-hand side, it gives you a kind of snapshot, engagements, link clicks, retweets, favorites, replies. And you'll see on the top here, it gives you a nice graph where if you rest over each one, it'll give you a summary for each individual day. So this one, for example, tells me I had 8,681 organic impressions on February the 28th, 2015. And really what that's telling me is that on that day, I did not pay for any impressions. So organic impressions are ones that are achieved without paying Twitter for an ad. And you'll see that I don't pay Twitter for any ads. So if I did, this bar would tell me the difference between the organic impressions and paid for impressions. Okay, but this is really about how to achieve impressions organically. If you click here, you get tweets and replies, not just your tweets, but the ones you replied to. And over here, you'll see promoted. And we haven't got any promoted ones. If we did, it would tell me there the difference between the impressions. Okay, so that's pretty useful information. And I should just point out, if we go back on the tweets dashboard, I can change that from last 28 days to last 7 days. The graph changes to February, the graph changes, November, the graph changes. Okay, and it's usually from this part you can download the data as well, but we won't look at that today. So this November looked like a pretty good month in terms of organic impressions. So here we're going to look at followers. So let's click on the followers tab, and this is fairly straightforward. It tells me the amount of followers over time. So this starts actually from 2012. There's a pre-history here from 2008, which it doesn't cover, but it gives me from 2012 up till now. And you see there's been a steady, consistent rise. There hasn't been any spikes. It's been pretty steady going. Down here, based on the interest people cite when they sign up for Twitter. You can have a list of interests. I don't, take too much interest in that. That doesn't tell me much. People may not be actually saying exactly what they do. Same here. Top 10 interests of your followers. Sorry, this one's most unique interests. This one's top 10 interests. I'm not too worried about that. It's no surprise either that my people come from the UK rather than anywhere else. And the gender split, I suppose it might well be accurate. You'd have to trust that people are telling Twitter honestly whether they're male or female. And of course, this platform doesn't distinguish real accounts that follow me from spam accounts. So I suspect I have a good deal of spam accounts which are, not run by real people, but just created by bots and, just churning out rubbish. They can follow me as well, and they may well be on here as well. And also, some of these, whether male or female, you'll see that some of the people who follow me, or, the ones that I follow or follow me, are not gender specific. They're brands and organisations. So I'm not so secure in my feelings about that data either. It might generally be right. So the followers data really, for me, just tells me the kind of track of how I'm increasing followers or not. You could see a dive there if we were so inclined. Okay, so the Twitter dashboard is pretty straightforward. Let's have a look at the Facebook dashboard. So here, I'll just go back, and so this is me on Facebook. This is my stream of news. Okay, it's my news feed, various people on there. And if we go to /insights, it shows me that I can look at insights for all the pages that I run. Okay, ignore the top thing there. So I run several pages, or I'm administrator for a good few pages on Facebook. So we're going to look at this one called Bourneville News, because that's a website that I run, local news about the area, and I push the content to Facebook. Now, on Facebook, you get quite a lot of data, actually. You get information about page likes, who likes my page. And actually, why don't we open up the page while we're doing this, just so we can have a look. And there's the page. That's what it's like. So sometimes I link to Bourneville relevant content from elsewhere, like that. Sometimes I push stuff from my own website, the Bourneville Village website, and very rarely I might say or request information. It's a kind of request for information there. And on the page, when I'm logged in, it actually tells me for each one the amount of people reached, which is pretty good. Okay, and we'll come back to what reach means. But let's look at the insights panel. So the amount of page likes, so only up 1.5% from last week. 10 new page likes, gives you a little graph. Reach of the posts, we'll come back to what reach is. Engagement, what else? And it gives me a little bit of data on each post as well. So reach, engagement, and a bit like Twitter, it invites you to boost or promote your posts. So here again, we'll only have information on organic because we're not doing any paid for. If we did, then we'd probably see the paid for reach outstrip organic by as much as 10 to 1 because Facebook kind of chokes you back a little bit if you're not paying for reach. And the extent to which my content appears on other people's news feeds is really controlled by Twitter. It's not by Facebook in this instance, not really controlled by me. Okay, it gives me some suggestions of other pages to watch to do some comparisons with that are kind of local and connected. And so you could track yourself against people who run other pages. So on Facebook, we're going to look at two things, reach and engagement. So reach is the number of people who have seen your post. So the post showed in the timeline. Facebook will give you a distinction between reach and impressions. So for Facebook, impressions are the amount of times a post makes an impression on a timeline, but an individual may see that post more than once because different people share it. So the reach is the number of individuals, impressions is the number of time it appears in a newsfeed. But the reality is those figures for most of us will be more or less the same. Okay. So really the one we want to think about in Facebook terms, the one it talks most about is reach. And then secondly, did the person who looked at this have any kind of engagement with it? And we'll just look at that shortly. So that's interaction of some kind with the post. So here is our overview tab. If we click on here, we can look at likes, but let's go to reach. So the number of people your post was served to. Okay. Again, you'll see this is, what are the dates here? This is February, March. So when I'm not posting here, which is quite a long time sometimes, it's very little. So old posts are maybe being reshared or something like that, so they're making some kind of impression. Here's a time I posted, and its reach is 768. So that post reached 768 people. And that might be because they liked it, they shared it, or they came to the page to look at it. But whichever way, it was seen. Okay, so that's a definite kind of figure. That's not to say they read the detail of it, that they clicked on it and went somewhere else. They just saw it. Down here we have the amount of likes, comments, and shares. This is probably the kind of information we actually need. So let's go. Here we go. 8th of March. Does that correspond with that? 8th of March there. So we had a lot of reach. We had 9 comments, 11 likes. So it's not amazing or anything. Facebook will also tell you the amount of people who hide your posts. So when it appears in their feed, if they click hide this, I don't want to see this, it's not relevant, the button that allows you to make some choices about what you see in your news feed, then it'll record that. Luckily, nobody is hiding my stuff. And then it gives you the total reach figure based on the people who hid it. It takes those away if anybody did. If you look at the individual posts tab, we'll just come down here, and we see here we've got the figures and details. So there's a post here that had a lot of reach. Okay. And here is its figure for engagement. So that had 9.3 thousand organic reaches, and it had nearly 1,000, about 1,000 engagement. So that means that could be a mixture of, rather, likes, comments, shares, some kind of link on it. If we click down to, what did we click there? likes, comments, shares, we get a bit more information. So let's take this one. There we go, we've got 125 likes, 19 comments, and 36 shares. So the rest of the types of engagement, because we said there was about 1,000, are people clicking on it and going to the actual post on my website. And that did get a lot there. So post clicks, likes, comments, and shares is the total you get here. Okay. I could, if I want to, click boost posts and pay for that, and it'd get a new audience, but we won't talk about advertising here. We'll just focus on organic reach. And we can do that for any individual post. Okay. So the distinctions there, so an engagement here is a post click, a like, a comment, and or a share, any of those kinds of things. And then it will allow you to look at detail on likes, comments, and shares. This also gives you an engagement rate, which Twitter does as well, and we'll look at that as well. So on Twitter and on Facebook, it'll tell you the engagement rate. So the amount of engagements divided by the reach. And so actually this one here, which had far less reach, had a higher rate of engagement than the one that had higher percentage rate of engagement than the one that had 9.3 thousand organic reach. So there's lots of detail there, lots of lovely rich detail. We'll just check on the other tabs here. So that's rich. One thing worth noticing is that, look, this is page visits. Not many people are coming to actually visit my page. Okay, so the page serves up content to news feeds. That's what its function is. You can't really expect people to be coming to your page to remember to do that. Largely, it's your content appearing in the feed. So there's lots of other tabs here that are worth exploring to do with photos, likes, information. But let's go and look at Twitter. So on Twitter, we have impressions. Impressions tends to be the word they use. And this is the number of times a tweet made an impression on a timeline. Engagement, as we said, interaction of some kind. And on Twitter, it foregrounds the engagement rate, which, as we said, is engagements divided by impressions. So let's have a look at the Twitter activity. So here we go, we're on our tweets tab, and here's the list. So let's have a look at an individual tweet. This one, made earlier today, me being sarcastic about something political. Let's have a look at it. So I clicked on it to give the full detail. So this gives the number of impressions, number of times users saw the tweet on Twitter. And you're thinking, well, you know, I've got 4,500 followers. Why isn't that figure 4,500? Because people may not have been looking at Twitter at the time I tweeted it. So this is a measure of the amount of times effectively my tweet was loaded up into the device or the browser, and then presumably their eyes looked at the tweet. Twitter doesn't really know that. It doesn't know whether a person skimmed quickly past it or whatever. It just knows whether the software loaded the tweet up into a stream. Okay? But anyway, that's all we can go on. We don't know if people looked at it or whatever. We do know, though, if people engage with it in some way. So click to view a photo or a video or photo in a tweet. So there was some 10 clicks on the media in there. There was, depending on the Twitter client you're using, sometimes you have to click the link out to the picture. So you could click that and it'll click out to the picture. So there was 9 link clicks. Some software now doesn't show the picture as default. You have to expand the tweet. So 7 people did that. It got 4 retweets. It got 1 favorite, and 2 people clicked on my name to see who on earth I am. It got no replies. Let's just close that one. And the engagement rate for that, so a lot of impressions, 4.4%. Let's have a look at some others. Let's see whether we got, this one got more impressions. This is a tweet from a conference. Again, my more sarcastic ones tend to be more successful. So this tab, first 24 hours of the tweet or last 24 hours. Okay, but whichever way, this gives you the key metrics, gives you the total to date. So this got 1,085 impressions, 17 detail expands, and then people were clicking my profile name to see who I was. Okay, because you can imagine as people tweet this who may be in my network, but actually don't overlap very much as my network. People in their network are thinking, there's a humorous tweet. I wonder who said that, and then we'll click my profile for more detail. It's a way, if you like, to expand. Those retweets are quite important because it expands me into other networks. Okay, so you've got details and all that, and largely the figures for engagement rates on Twitter are always, pretty much lower than those on Facebook. There tends to be less engagement with the content, but then sometimes that's because there's nothing to engage with. So this, for example, well, let's find a 0. There's a good 0. There's me just making a comment about something I'm writing. This has 0 engagement because actually, other than me and my name, there's nothing to engage with, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just making a pithy comment, but there's no image or anything to engage with. Okay, so the Twitter dashboard, let's look just at a couple of other things. So we got a sense of impressions, the number of times it saw on Twitter, engagement, some form of engagement, and then the engagement rate. Okay. The one thing I wanted to say as well is that you can, on Twitter, look at the activity, these analytics on your mobile device. So this is actually the Bourneville Twitter account. And on here, if I'm using the native Twitter client on, in this case, an iPhone, this is a screen grab, and you'll see where it says View Tweet Activity. If I click on that, it gives me quite a lot of detail, the same detail I would get online, and it doesn't give me all the engagement types, but the highlights, if you like. So on this one, it was quite successful. I got 73 link clicks, because actually here I'd use something called a Twitter card, which invites the person to click on a button. 20 clicks view tweet details, and 17 clicks on a profile picture or name. And actually after that, I gained quite a few new followers to this account. So you can look at it on your mobile device as you're going about your business. So I just thought we'd say something about reflecting on the data. So there's a lot of rich data, as you can see, and on both those platforms you should be able to download that data into an Excel spreadsheet. And actually when you do that, you get a much deeper set of data, and almost actually too much, unless you're really talking about having thousands of followers on or thousands of likes on your Facebook page. And the same with Twitter. But you can get enough from a glance around the platform. So what do we know from looking at this stuff, really? The first thing that always strikes me is that, why do some posts get more engagement than others? So if we go back to Twitter, for example, is there something about when you post and whether the post has an image? So is there a higher engagement rate if there is an image in it? So there's 4.3%, 8.7%, 4.9%, 2.7%, 0.9%. So there seems to be, a modest uplift, I would say. There's 11.6%, and there's 10.8%. There's a modest uplift with pictures. Okay, 11.6. All these ones are quite low. They're just me saying stuff. There's a picture with a fairly low engagement rate, and there's one with a fairly high engagement rate. Okay, so there might be something about the kind of use of images, but there's also perhaps something about time of day. Now, what's good about Facebook's detail, it offers you, where am I? Okay, is Facebook will actually tell you when the fans of your page, the people who have liked it, are online in general. So it gives you a kind of curve here to show, and it shows you that there are most of your fans, most of the people who have liked your page, in my instance, are online at 9 o'clock at night. So there's 394 of them online, 9 o'clock at night. Let's have a look on Saturdays, see if it's the same. So Saturdays, the curve slightly, no, Saturdays is the same, 10 o'clock, a bit later. So there's 9 o'clock. So what's that, Friday, 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock, slightly up. What about Sundays? Sundays, 9 o'clock. So clearly in that, what traditionally would be peak TV viewing time, kind of 7 till 10 p.m., that's when most of my fans are online. And I've got a better chance of reaching those if I post at that time. Now, it might be that I can organize my social media platforms so that I don't have to be there when I do that. So I can use applications like Buffer or Hootsuite to do scheduled posts to post at that time. But, it's easy enough to post a link at 9 o'clock at night if I really want that audience. Actually, I have a habit of posting at silly times. So sometimes it's kind of nearly midnight, or sometimes it's 7 in the morning, but there's less people looking at that stage. Now, unfortunately, Twitter doesn't quite offer you the same curve, really, but the curve's probably going to be close to that. It's still the truth that most people in in the general population don't have access, or don't have, let's say, work access to social media platforms. So therefore, they do that social media viewing during their commutes, or in the evening, or later in the evening. So you really need to think about maybe when your audience is online, and perhaps scheduling stuff at that time. That's one way potentially you can increase eyeballs on your content. Okay, the other thing to think about is who you're tagging. So here, for example, I'm tagging, I'm mentioning, let's call it tagging or mentioning, somebody called Hannah Witten, and this platform she uses. So my hope there maybe was that Hannah would retweet it, and this platform called Patreon would retweet it. Actually, let's have a look and see who did retweet that. Yep, so it looks like Tim Wilson. No, those are my retweets. And I think Hannah favorited it. And favoriting's a little bit irritating because it doesn't broaden it out to Hannah's audience, and Hannah's audience is much bigger than mine. So had Hannah retweeted it, that would have been the number of impressions for that tweet would have gone up quite a lot. But the people who did retweet it probably have lower follower counts than me. But mentioning some people and trying to get them to retweet your content is a good idea. And the thing to remember really is that you're operating in a network. That network has nodes, and some of those nodes are more connected than others. So we looked at the Twitter analytics, and we found that a very useful thing in the summary page here. It tells me who my top followers are for that month. These are the people I should be thinking about. Here's the editor of The Guardian following me in January. That was pretty good. So I should, I think I probably did tweet, because I saw him in a talk, great to hear from Alan Rusbriger. I don't think he retweeted it. Okay. So it's about working out who's the most significant person in your network, and maybe seeding that content, speaking to those people offline, maybe, or via email, and saying, asking them to, retweet your content. I do that with people I work with all the time. If I feel I have more followers than them, I'll say, let me know what it is, and I'll retweet it, and we'll try and get it out there. But there's lots of tactics you can have really around trying to get your content out to more audiences. But it's really about understanding your network and who's the most significant players in that network, and how you can, reach out to them by offline or mentioning and tagging them in some way. Don't forget as well, on Twitter, you can, I don't have a good example here, but you can, here I mention Hannah Witten, but actually what I can do is I can tag Hannah Witten in the photograph to indicate she's in the photograph. And if it's a group photograph, I can tag all the people in the photograph. If you look at the way you do Twitter on either native Twitter app or on Twitter platform, that allows you to do that. It actually saves you some characters up here as well. Okay, I think on that one I did very well because, let's have a look, because Hannah herself tweeted it, and Hannah has 20,000 followers. Okay, so that was a good example of all these favorites came from Hannah's followers, not from any of mine. One of mine. There you go. Most of them are from Hannah's followers. Okay, great. So that's an oversight of the platforms. Really, I think it's about a gentle re-shifting of your behavior to try and increase engagement. What's powerful is if you know what the patterns of behavior are because you've looked at the analytics, you feel a little bit more in control and a little bit more aware of the kind of contents that are successful. And generally, you're going to get more engagement from stuff that has links in it, stuff that has an image in it, and stuff posted at particular times of day. But don't go on the basis that my interpretation of my data is the same. It might be your audience are alive and tweeting and engaged at different times of the day. So don't take generalities at face value. Get to know your audience by looking at in detail at the analytics. Thanks very much.